Alright, this is Uncle Jam back at it with another resource pack video. This is the 4th episode in my mini series on connected textures, and we are going to be going over the remaining 2 methods. Now this video is going to assume you have seen the first 2 episodes of my mini series, or you have a pretty good understanding on how connected textures work. So we're going to be covering the random method, as you can see by these cakes here, which are randomized. And the repeat method, as you can see by this sand here, which repeats over a large area. We are also going to go over the heights parameter because I had a comment on one of my previous videos from Philippe Gaudreau, who showed me how to use the height parameter correctly, as you can see by the lapis, having it change colors based on height. And we are going to go over a few other quick tips to do with connected textures. So let's get into it. Alright, so to start off, we are going to go over the random method. Now keep in mind, this random method does require Optifine to see, because it is using CTM. I've made a previous video covering alternate random blocks, which is completely vanilla, so if you want to see how to do that, there'll be a link on the screen for you. So let's get into the CTM random method. So in order to do this method, there are a couple things we're going to need. The first thing is we need our random textures. And the second thing is we need a document to tell the game when to implement these random textures. So we need to get our texture we want to randomize. So head into your resource pack folder. If you don't know how to get here, check out episode 1 in my resource pack series. Head into assets, into Minecraft, and then head into textures and blocks. Now we want to find a block we want to edit. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to use the end bricks here. So I'm just going to copy it here and paste it onto my desktop. Now we need to create our variants or our different options of the end bricks or whatever block you want to use. So let me do that. Okay, so as you can see, I have all my variants created. Now one thing you'll notice is they are all numbered. Now that's very important when you're making your variants. Make sure you keep them numbered. They can be any numbers you want, just make sure they're numbered, and variants for the same block are in order. So as you can see, these are all for end stone. So they are in order 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now if I had another block, I could make them 4, 5, 6, and 7. Just make sure they're all numbers. So let's install them into our pack now. So here's my pack pulled up. I'm going to head into assets, into Minecraft, and we need a folder called MC Patcher, which I have from the previous episodes. If you don't have one, just create it, head inside. And we need a folder called CTM inside. So let's head inside. And you'll notice we have a bunch of subfolders. Now we need to install our textures into this folder. Now they can be organized in any subfolders you want. These are my subfolders from the previous episodes. So I'm going to create a new folder and call it End Bricks. We'll head inside and install our images right in here. I'll clean them up. And now we need to create a text document to implement these into the game. Now one thing I want to note is you'll notice that I have the default end stone here as well as my variants. Now if you want to include the default texture as a variant for your pack, make sure you include it in this folder here because we need to actually point to this file. So if you want the default to show up, include it with your variants. If you don't want the default to show up, don't include it with your variants. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is create a text document to tell the game when to implement these random textures. So on Mac, I'm going to head into textedit. On Windows, you can use Notepad. We're going to make sure we format it to a plain text. And if you're on a Mac, head into Preferences and into Open and Save and change the encoding to Western Windows Latin 1. So as you can see, we have all the parameters pulled up on the screen, and we're going to go through these pretty quickly, except for the ones highlighted in green, because we have gone over all the rest of these parameters in the past episodes. So we're going to start off with match blocks. And now we need the block ID for end stone bricks. So here we are in game. We're going to open our inventory. We're going to highlight over end stone bricks, and we see the number is 206. Just push F3 and H if you can't see that in your game. So here we are, we'll plug in 206 and we'll move on to method. And in this one, I'm showing off the random method and the tiles. Now the tiles, we need to include all the numbers of our tiles. So mine are numbered 0 to 3, which includes 4 tiles. Now if you have numbers, say 52, you have a number 9, you have a number 12, you just list them like so with spaces in between. But mine in this case are 0 to 3. So that's all the required parameters we need in order to activate our random textures. So let's save our document. We can call it anything we want. I'll call it random end. And we make sure we name it .properties. And if you're on a Mac, make sure you change the encoding to Western Windows Latin 1 and make sure this box is unchecked. And it's a .properties. There we go, because that will make it a text and we want it to be .properties. We'll hit save and we'll just install it into our folder. Now let's head back in game and we will reload our pack and see what happens. There we go. Also, make sure you install your pack into the game to see this. And you can see we have randomized end bricks. Now there's one thing you may notice. You'll see how some of these blocks here, they have multiple colors on each block. Like this one is green, blue, white, and regular. And that may not be desired. So there is a way to fix that. So let's head back into our text document. And we will go over the first optional parameter, or actually the second, which is called symmetry. We'll cover this one first. So we'll type in symmetry. There we go. And our equals sign. And now there are 3 options for symmetry. There's all, none, and opposite. Now the default is none. So what we just saw in game was symmetry set to none. So if we change it to all, let's see what happens. This is referring to the sides. So all the sides are going to be symmetrical. So if we reload it, as we expect, this fixes all those random tiles. So we now start having them all being symmetrical. So we place one block, we get all regular, another one all white, and you'll see they randomize around. So let's cover the last parameter, which is weights. So we'll head back into our document. I'm going to keep the symmetry on all, and we will add in weights. So the weights are relative to the tiles you specified. So I've specified tiles 0 to 3, which is 4 tiles. So we need to have 4 weight values. So let me add in my weight values. So if I say 1 space 1 space 1 space 20, what that will do is for tile 0, it will have a weight of 1. Tile 1 will have a weight of 1. Tile 2 will have a weight of 1. And tile 3 will have a weight of 20. So these weights are just in order, corresponding to the order you specified in your tiles option. And also what the game will do is add up these values, and that's how it will calculate. So there's 23 total here. So one block in 23 is going to be tile 0, one block tile 1, one block tile 2, and 20 blocks in 23 will be tile 3. And tile 3 is the default texture. So if we head back in game here, reload the pack, you can see right away the difference. Tile 3, which is default, is way more common than these other random colors we have. So that's the weights parameter. Now, I am just going to quickly demonstrate the heights parameter and how to use the heights parameter because I didn't demonstrate this in my previous videos. So let's head back into my document. So I'm going to erase the weights parameter for now, and we're going to keep the symmetry on all. Now let's say we want these random blocks to only display underground. I'm not sure why we'd want that, but let's just demonstrate it. And now you'll see we have heights. Now there's actually 2 things you have to type for heights. You have to type a min height with a capital H and a max height. So we'll do min height at 0 and max height we'll do at 30 or maybe 40. So in between y value 0 and y value 40, it's going to randomize these textures. Anywhere above that, it's just going to display the default endstone. So let's save our document, head back in game, reload our pack, and you'll see it's all default. And that's because the Y level we are at is 56. Now if I head over here to my hole, pop down the hole, and we start placing tiles in here, you'll notice they're starting to randomize to the different colors. So as you can see, this is how Oh, and we are actually at Y level 40 right now. So that's why on this layer it's only randomizing. And up here you'll notice it's not. That's because this is Y level 42. So you can see that's how you set the heights parameter. So now let's move on to the repeat method. Okay, so let's move on to the repeat method. So the repeat method will take a larger image file, and tile it and repeat it over a large area of blocks. So what we need an image file that's going to be larger than the resolution of your pack, which in my case is 16 by 16. So here I have grabbed an image from Google Images, which is an image that looks somewhat like sand, which I will show you how to repeat over a large area of blocks. So what we need to do first is divide this image up into a bunch of tiles. Now there's a couple ways you can do this. The first one would be opening it up in your image editing software and dividing it into tiles. Or the second one would be this handy tool I found online called Image Splitter. There'll be a link in the description. Basically you just drag your image, drop it right in here, click upload, and you'll see it will upload your image. And now we need to split the image, so we're going to highlight over split image. And we need to specify how many rows and columns. Now in order to do that, we need to take the resolution of our image, mine is 128 by 128, and divide it by the resolution of our pack, which in my case is 16 by 16. So 128 by 128 divided by 16 by 16, we're going to get 8 and 8. So we will put 8 rows and 8 columns, and we want to make sure we always change it to a PNG, and we will click split image. There we go, it downloaded. So there we go, you can see it downloaded, and I stuck it onto my desktop here. So we'll just pop it open, and we will head inside, and we'll see we have the image nicely split up into a bunch of pixelated tiles. Now the only thing is we actually need to name all of these tiles numbers going in order. So let me do that quickly and I'll get back to you. So there we go. As you can see, I have named all my tiles in as numbers all the way up to tile 63, starting from 0. So we have 64 tiles here, which we are going to tile over a large area in game. So we need to install this folder into our pack now. So let me do that. Here's the folder. I'm just going to rename it to sand tiles. And we will head into our assets folder, into Minecraft, into our MC Patcher folder, into CTM, and we will drop it right in here. Now we need to create our text document. So on Mac, I'm using textedit. On Windows, you can use Notepad. We'll once again make it a plain text. Make sure you change the encoding if you're on a Mac. And we will start off with match blocks. Now we need to find the ID for sand. As you can see, the ID is 12 with a metadata of 0. Head back in here, we'll type 12. The method we are using is repeat. The tiles we have are 0 to 63. And the metadata, which we have to add because the sand has a meta, is 0. So there we go. Now we've got all our required tiles. And now we need to actually specify the dimensions of our image. Now you'll see on the image on the side, we have 2 parameters, which are width and height. So we need to specify those now. So we type width. And the width of our image is actually 8 tiles. So we put 8. And the height of our image is 8 tiles as well. So as you can see, we need to specify the width and height values in order for this method to work. So take a look at that document and we will head in game and see if it worked. So before we do that, I'm just going to save my document. Once again, you can call it anything you want. I'll call it sand.properties. And we will change the encoding to Western Windows Latin 1. Hit save. And there we go. Now we will install it into our folder. Just drop it in there. And let's head in game and check out if it worked. So here we are back in game. I'm going to reload my pack. And we will start placing down sand blocks. And you'll notice it is actually changed to all of those textures. Now, how we can tell this is working is we have to actually put a massive area of these down and see if we can notice the tiles. But already you can notice some differences here. Like if I place down this one and we just looked at two side by side, you can see these tiles are not the same texture. Like you notice some of that darker stuff in the corner. That's because these are tiling. So let me place down a large area and we'll see if we can notice any differences. Okay, so as you can see, I have placed down a large area of sand here. And it may be hard to tell because this texture is very well blends into itself. But the tile is actually large and repeating. You can really notice when we zoom out here, you can see this kind of darker patch repeating over a large area. So it's a really nice way to add some variation into your large terrain with lots of the same blocks. As opposed to just having the same block repeated over and over, you can have a large area of blocks repeated over and over. Now there's one parameter you'll notice that we haven't covered, which is symmetry. And what this will do is it will alternate the symmetry when you place the blocks vertically, like so. You'll see this side, it's hard to demonstrate here, but this side and this side, it will alternate which direction those are facing. So there's a couple options for that parameter, which I'll show on the screen, but I'm not going to demonstrate that right now. If you want to mess with that, you can do that on your own. So I'm going to show you a couple more little tricks with CTM, and then we'll wrap up the series. Okay, so I just want to go over a quick few little things about CTM here. The first one is the alternate way of naming your properties files. So if you ever take a look at older CTM packs, you may notice this method of naming. So I'm in my folder here. I'm just gonna head into one of my folders from the past episodes, such as the diamond block here. This was the demonstration of the full CTM method we did in the first episode. And we will check out our properties file here. So we see we have match block specified to 57. Now the alternate way of naming is actually removing this parameter and naming our properties file to specify. So we would name it block 57. Now this replaces the match blocks parameter. So if you ever see this, this is the way to name it if you don't want to include the match blocks parameter within your document. Now for me, this method is a little bit confusing because it restricts you to naming your file. You have to name it block57.properties. Now why might this be confusing? Because the properties files are actually activated in alphabetical order. So if you are ever having errors with, say, when you're creating multiple CTM textures for one block, or you're doing some biomes settings, it's because you need to check your order of the properties files. They activate from A to Z. So if you have say an overlay texture like we covered, activating in the wrong order from a connected texture file, then it won't display in game. So you have to make sure you check the order of your properties files. And that has to do with the name. So that's why I don't like this method very much. So I'm just going to put it back to this method here. But that is the alternate method of naming. Because with match blocks specified within the document, you can now name this whatever you want and it won't matter. So that's the one thing about the naming and the alphabetical order. Those are two things to keep in mind. So I think that's going to do it for this video. So if you enjoyed, make sure you stay tuned for more videos. I got more planned on the way. We're probably going to go over custom skies and some more custom colors and things like that. So have a good day.